Welcome to this beginner yoga tips and advice video. If you haven't seen me before, I'm Leah from Lakora Yoga and the founder of Fledgling Yogi, where we help beginner yogis feel confident on the mat and reach their yoga goals. But let's just get straight to it and start with the tips. So the first tip, number one, that I would say if you are completely new to yoga is start at home. When you start at home, you haven't got that self-conscious feeling. You know, you put on a video, you roll out your mat and you just practice. Now, you might be a little bit confused at how to do some things, and this is where YouTube and places like that are great for finding tutorials and advice. Now, going to a yoga class is obviously great because you get the mentorship of your yoga teacher and they can help to really guide you into the poses. But honestly, if you're just getting started, if this is like your first ever yoga class, my advice would be to start at home and just get a feel of the practice. Just see if you like the kind of movements. If you like the movements, then obviously you can take it a little bit further. But that's my tip number one, start at home. Advice number two is listen to your own body, because everybody's body is different. What they're doing on the camera or in a yoga class could be completely different to what your body is capable of yet, and vice versa. Everybody's body is different. I remember when I went to my first yoga class and I was I was watching this girl next to me and my God, she could get into splits and she was so flexible. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just never gonna get there. And then when it came to do wheel pose, I could get up into it and she couldn't. And all this time I was like, oh my God, she's so much better than me. She could do this, she could do that. And yet I could do wheel. So everybody's body is different. Please just listen to your body in the poses. And if your body says, no, I don't want to do this, and you'll know if your body is thinking that, then don't do it yet. Wait and give it time. Yoga, believe it or not, is all about patience and the breath. So making sure you can breathe in the pose, and that's a good signal for if you're pushing it too far. If you struggle to breathe, you're probably pushing it a little bit too far, so just back on out of it. Number three, carrying on from number two, because everybody's body's different, flexibility does not come into account for yoga. You do not have to be flexible to do yoga. It's like saying, you know, you can't cook because you're not a chef. You know, you just cook anyway. Cooking and creating recipes and stuff makes you better at cooking. The same with yoga. Yoga is going to help you gain flexibility. It's all about listening to your body. And honestly, if you want to get flexible, the best thing to do is yoga. So you don't have to be flexible to do yoga. Number four, don't worry about Sanskrit names. It is rarely used, especially in the Western world. Obviously, if you want to get a little bit deeper into yoga, then it's nice to know these things. But normally, the one that I tend to use quite a bit is Tadasana, which is mountain pose, where you're stood at the top of your mat. Now, whenever somebody says Sanskrit words, they normally explain anyway. So if you don't understand a word, don't freak out and panic. Just look around or look at the person on the screen, see what they're doing. It's rarely used, and the more you practice, the more these things will start to become natural to you and you'll start to understand a little bit more about it. Tip number five, if you're brand new to yoga, is to not lock out your knees. Now, in some classes, they may say to do that, and that's absolutely fine. Now, if you don't know what I mean by locking out your knees, I'll give you an example. When you're stood in a forward fold, this is me with my knees slightly bent. If they're locked out, I'm really pushing my kneecaps to the back of the mat. Now, when I do this, there's not much muscle engagement. It is all, sorry, a bit high up then. It is all just kind of pushing into the bones. Whereas if you slightly bend your knees, you can already start to feel the muscle engagement. And it's the same when you're in a seated forward fold. And you'll know if your knees are locked out if you're seated, if you have your legs out long in front of you, because your ankles will lift up off of the mat. So if you ground down through your ankles, it will just slightly bend in your knees. And I don't mean, bend your knees this much. I mean ever so slightly bend. But again, most teachers will advise you on this, and if they don't say, then I would say keep a slight bend. But some teachers will say lengthen through your legs, and then that would mean to keep them a little bit straighter. Number 6 is to follow along with your breath. So when you're in the poses, and I've mentioned this in one of the previous steps, listen to your breath. If your breath starts becoming too quick and you can't catch your breath, you can't breathe in the pose, then you've gone too far. So come out of it slightly. So when we go into a pose, it's like you're not going completely towards your edge. You're not going to where, as far as you can. You kind of go to that point and then you come back out of it slightly. So you can breathe and you can relax in the positions. Because the one thing about gaining flexibility, which I repeat constantly in my fledgling yogi course, is that your exhale will tell your body to relax. So if you're in a pose and you're going, your body's just going to freak out. You're going to go into that fight or flight mode and freeze probably, and panic, and your body's not going to be able to relax. When you can relax in the pose, so when you can take deep inhales and exhales, your body, you're sending a signal to your brain that your body's okay and it's okay to relax, and that's where you're going to feel the benefit of the stretching. So listen to your breath. Number 7 is that asana. The asana means poses. That is just one part of yoga. If you look into the philosophy of yoga, there's actually 8 steps, and only one of them is asana, which is the poses. You have so many more. So I'm not going to go into full detail on what the 8 limbs of yoga is, but you also have the breathing exercises, you have the way of life, the way that you're living, you have meditation. So even if you are struggling with the asana part of yoga, you can still do yoga. You can find this information out there, but meditation, breathing exercises, consciously living as a decent human being is all part of yoga. The next thing, number 8, is that yoga is all about you. When you're in your poses and when you're on your mat, you are fully concentrated on yourself. It's like you forget about the outside world and you're completely focused on what your body is doing, how you're breathing, following instructions, and it's a great time to figure out how you feel. So when you're in a pose, you can understand your body a little bit better. You're consciously looking out, especially because most teachers will say this through the yoga class as well, to notice if there's any tension in your body, focus on your breath, open your hand up, how's that feel? It's always bringing it back to you completely focusing on your body, which is why it's a great way to stay healthy and understand your body a little bit more, because especially in Shavasana is so important, but laying in Shavasana at the end of the class and scanning your body, how often do you just stop and think, let's just scan my body and see how I feel today? Probably never. So yoga is a great way to just find out about you and even your emotions, because sometimes doing certain poses can release emotions, especially if you're working in the hips. And it's a strange feeling, but sometimes emotions can just start flooding out. But it's just a great way to kind of connect with yourself, and hopefully after a few classes you will see the benefits of that. And number 9 is that you do not need to do an hour's class every week or every day to do yoga. You can literally do 5 minutes a day. And remember what I said in one of the previous steps, it's not just about the asana. So you can even just do meditation and breathing exercises, but even in just 5 minutes a day, you are going to feel a major difference in yourself. Number 10, there is so many different types of yoga out there. So if you feel like you really want to try yoga, like you're getting drawn to it, which hopefully you are if you're watching this video, then try different classes. There's so many different styles. There's yin, which is like really slow. There's vinyasa, which is the fast pace. There's ashtanga, which is quite a strong practice. There's just so many different kinds of yoga practices and also different teachers. Now, every teacher will also teach differently. So get on YouTube, go to different yoga classes and go to different people, different styles, and see which one you prefer. Number 11. You will have bodily noises happening. It is completely normal. You are moving the body, you know, especially with twists, you're kind of massaging the internal organs. It's gonna happen, unfortunately. This is one of the good things about practicing at home is you don't have to feel as embarrassed by it, but just know that it happens, laugh it off. And yeah, to be honest, it's a good thing. It's obviously something that needs to come out and needs to be moved. So yeah, that's number 11. Number 12, which I know a lot of people might not want to do, but taking photos and videos of yourself is a great way to see where you're at. When you're practicing at home, it's really hard to notice if you're doing the poses correctly. And when you video yourself and then you look back on it, you can actually see where you are. There's so many times I thought I was doing chaturanga perfectly, and then I looked back on the video and my bum was like, you know, halfway up to the ceiling, and I didn't notice, I didn't realize. And after time now, you know, I now know how to do it correctly. And that wasn't by a teacher telling me, that was just me watching myself and giving myself feedback. So pictures and videos are a great way to improve. And the last tip is where to start. Where do you start with all this? So my recommendation would be to go on YouTube, because there are so many different yoga teachers, different styles out there, different length classes. So, you know, there is just millions and millions of teachers and classes to do on YouTube. Pick one, keep trying them until you find a teacher you like, and then you can stick with that one. If you want to go to a yoga class, then obviously, you know, you've got Google to search, look in your local Facebook groups, ask around. I'm sure there will be one. There's so many yoga teachers out there now. So yeah, just pick one and go and try it out. And just to add on to that one, hormones can play a major part in how your body feels and how you feel emotionally. So if you really didn't like a class, just notice where you are in your hormone cycle and maybe try one at a different time as well, because that can play a major role in that. So thank you so much for learning with me today. I hope that you come out of this video with some great tips and advice. If there's anything else you'd like to know, please leave me a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you liked this video. And if you're interested in looking more into Fledgling Yogi, I'll leave a link in the description below and you can check it out. And I will see you next week with another video.